Hello my friends, this is Qing Hong. Welcome to my studio in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Summer is in full steam right now, so it's timely to learn how to paint the summer flowers. And today I actually have two exercises for us in this lesson. And the first one is going to help us loosen up and really enjoy watercolor. And for the second one, we are going to slow down and just take our time to focus and learn how to paint flowers and a butterfly. Let's get started. Right, let's give this a try. And the paper I'm using is Saunders Waterford, but it's not a 140 pound, but it's a 90 pound paper, and this is thinner. And because that is a little cheaper than the 140 pounds, so it's a great paper to use for practice or doing small sketches. So I really recommend this paper if you want to try out a cotton paper without breaking the bank. And this is a great choice. It really gives you the kind of texture. It just dries a little sooner and it's thinner, that's all. Okay, so and here this is reference photo we're going to work with today. And I'm just looking at this picture and I'm noticing the colors, and that will affect my color choices. So I'm definitely seeing a lot of hot pink. And also I'm seeing a red, it's pretty red, and some cooler pink. So let's see what else. Yeah, maybe even a little bit of orange as it's going down here. So it's not just a hot pink, but there's variations. And certainly in the center of the flowers, we have different colors. And these greens are a little bit warm kind of green, and then underneath, behind the flowers, is more cold. So yeah, that gives us good information, and we can get started and to try out the colors. So to do this creative wash, we're going to just be creative and have fun with it. And don't worry about getting it right, but let's just see how we can enjoy watercolor. So here is probably like so, the whole flower. I'm putting a little bit of a dot here, here. And I know this pigment is really concentrated, so I don't have to have a lot on my paper. So just a little dot and get it started. And let's see. Okay, now I'm using a clear brush, and I'm going to start to move the pigment around, sort of in the shape of this hollyhock. Just really freely let it flow, and you don't have to really worry about if it's looking like a hollyhock or not at this point. But just look at my reference photo and roughly give that shape. So I'm trying to leave out a little bit of the white in the center, so it's not all covered, because there is the center that is white or a little bit of light yellow. Here it's just more like that. Okay, let's give it more water. And this flower is coming this way. And there's some little flower here, and maybe even down there. Okay, now that's a fun part. Let's throw some water. and let it connect. That's the game of watercolor. You create so much connection. When you have connection, then there is a flow. Okay. All right. Softening some edges. Maybe a little more here. And remember, I saw the red color, so we can drop that in. Here and there. It doesn't have to go to every flower. And then I see or I feel some cool tones, especially in the back, like for this one. I can start to drop in some of that. Okay. And then I see some of that deep purple. I'm going to start to drop that in now. So I'm not just trying to mimic my reference photo, but I'm starting to react to what's happened on the paper. I'm starting to noticing all that. Okay, now let's get some of that stem in. So I'm using a bit of a sap green, and let's see. And it has all this little bud still on it, so just get them in loosely. And I'm adding a little bit of Cascade green, which is a cooler color, so give that color some variation. The green is never a pure singular green. Okay, so see that give it more depth already. And we can come in here, start to add all that. Okay. And also now I want to just soften that flow a little bit more. Okay. And now I'm changing to a large brush to get some of that foliage in here. And this is a mixture of sap green and some green apatite genuine. I'm going to loosely put in some of that green color. And a little bit cold Cascade green when it comes closer to the flower, so it brings it out better. And there is some really pretty foliage here. Maybe over there. Okay. So, all right. Now, oops, I think I need to zoom out a little bit. This looks pretty fun. And in the background, there's some little pink flowers, so we'll just drop that in here, like so. little bit of, oops, red. And some just dotting here. I feel like to give it more of that energy coming out of the paper, growing out of paper, we can add some of that. Maybe a little bit of flower here to give it a little bit balance, but not overbalance. All right, I think this is really fun first wash, and soften some edges. Here, maybe soften some of that. Okay, so here is this painting, and I hope this is an exercise that help you feel more free and feel excited about painting watercolor. So it's not a chore, not a challenge, but something you really enjoy and look forward to just creating and have fun. Okay, so well, and for me, I can either come back to add more details to bring it more into focus, or I could just leave it as a fun playing piece, and that's good enough. Next, we are going to paint this butterfly and these pretty yellow flowers, little flowers and butterfly. And I'm using this pointed round brush because the petals are quite slender, and this one has a length that's just make it very convenient to create this kind of petals. And let's get started. So I'm going to start with the center of the flower, and I see that's kind of a yellow ochre with a little bit of raw sienna. So I'm just pulling down some colors on my palette. I'm looking, because we don't have a pencil sketch, so I'm just seeing how this is going to place on my paper, probably like so. Okay. All right, so I just sideways put my brush and skip some white, because there's actually that kind of sparkles. I'm just dropping in a little bit of this burnt sienna, and I'm switching how I put my brush onto the paper into these verticals, so this pointed point can show off. Okay, now I'm rinsing my brush and picking up some of the yellow color. And I'm actually just going to be like so. It's a pretty decisive brush stroke, because that's how I feel this energy of this flower. It's so vibrant and carefree and just be themselves. So we can try something like that too. Okay. And I'm leaving out a space for the butterfly to be on later, and some of that yellow. And then I'm picking up some raw sienna mixed with a little bit of burnt sienna and give this a little bit of shadow on the petal. And I'm using the tip of my brush. See, that's just can make it more precise. Now we want preciseness. Okay, I think that's pretty lovely. Now I want to darken where the bottom of this. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, now I'm switching to get some green color, deep green, and that looks like a cold green. So I'm picking up some Cascade green with a little bit Payne's gray because it's really dark gray, so the Payne's gray really helps it to stay darker. And then let's come in. Feeling my brush is a little bit too dry, then picking up a little bit of water. And then let's get this stem in. Okay, actually I like that there is a bit of skipping, so there's more of that energy. So you know, when we paint, it's not just about the shape, it's really so much about getting the energy right. Okay. I think that's good enough. And I want to just soften some of the edge. And some of my green pigment got on the petal, which is actually very good because that brings more of the color harmony. Okay, I think that's good. I don't want to just be fussy about it. Okay, now let's go on to the next little flower right here. Okay. I think this time I'm going to start with yellow on the center. Let's just give it a try. Somewhere here. Okay. And lifting up my brush to get some of that fine lines in. And then just bring it out. And this time my colors are actually a little bit paler because more pale, since this one flower is in the back, so we can just tone down the saturation so it looks more like it is in the back. Now I pick up some of the burnt umber and start to drop in a little bit of that darkness in the center, still using the tip of my brush. Okay. Now that petal, I'm not sure which one it belongs to, so that's okay, we'll just bring it in here. And I feel like there's some shadow color, so dropping a little bit of blue here and maybe a little bit here. Okay, all right. Okay, that's good enough. Let me get some of that green coming and some Cascade green and some Payne's gray. This interesting shape right here. And again, I don't mind all this fusion because this one is in the back, so it's actually make it less defined. So I'm just going to darken this tip a little bit and soften with clear water, and maybe strengthen this a little bit. So a little bit definition, but not overly done. And I feel like soften some of this here. A little bit soften here. Okay, I think that's good enough. All right, now let's move on to the third flower. So it's more like here. And I'm again going to start with the center. And I'm using a bit of raw sienna with a little bit of burnt sienna, a little mixture. So it's somewhere here. And it's a shape like this. Okay, now I'm switching, rinse my brush, and pick up some pure yellow and start to bring in some of that petal. And I'm changing how my brush meets the paper, because if I use the same direction, all my petal will start looking like the same. You know, that's one thing about being a human, is that we are very good at making things regular. And meaning it's controlled and not organic. So if you feel like you're making your painting seem to be so even, you know, that's just normal, because that's what we're good at as human beings. But since we're making art right now, let's just bring out all this organic feeling, so it's not all even. So I'm using clear water to lift out some of my darkness, and then dropping in a little bit of that yellow. Okay, and mix in a little bit of burnt sienna, give my petal a little bit of more shadow and definition. So just a little bit, because this one is also kind in the back, so we don't want it to be too well defined. And I'm actually dropping in a little bit of blue. This is, and soften the edge so it doesn't look so in the focus. Okay, that's good. Now the green, cascade green, mixed with a little bit of Payne's gray, come in like this. I wonder what this flower is. It looks like a little bit like a sunflower even, but I'm not sure. So dropping a little bit dark, give it more of definition, and then we can come in. I really like how this color fusion is right here. But this one, because it is supposed to be in the bag, so it's a little bit too much for the painting, so I'm softening it a little bit. And see here, I want to show you, I'm getting this too much diffuse. Then I just use a tissue paper to take off where I don't want this to go. So your tissue paper is more like a eraser in watercolor paper. I mean watercolor painting. Okay, all right. Now just a little bit more of connection here and there. Okay, all right. I think that's good enough for a loose watercolor flower. So I'm just dabbing in a little bit of yellow here and there to help strengthen this one a little bit more. Okay, now I feel like spatter some so it looks more alive. And let's see, first I want to soften this. Okay, then a little bit of light yellow. Okay, and maybe a little bit of that green. Yeah, I like this green little bit here. Okay, so at this point, actually, you can already call this a complete little painting. And if you are here, you like it, and you don't have to continue to work on to add the butterfly, because it's actually quite nice, a little sketch. Great for a beginner, but if you want to continue to go, let's add a little bit more and to add a little bit of that. Okay, so here I'm just showing you how I want to add a little bit of definition on something that's maybe too tuned out. Okay, that's good. Okay, next I'm going to paint this butterfly. And because I don't feel like painting the entire background, and this butterfly in the reference photo is white, so it's really impossible to paint a white subject without a background. So I'm going to make an artistic choice, is to paint a little blue butterfly instead, so I don't have to add all the background. Well, let's see if this works. Or maybe we can paint a, you know, a what do you call it? A lemon green or mint green kind of butterfly. I don't know. Let's just play. Let's just play for it. Okay, so I am picking up some of that turquoise color, and then again start to see where my butterfly is, probably like so. So I'm going to start with the big wing first. I rinse my brush and use clear water to bring out the wings. So that's a wing in the front. Okay, and then picking up a little more of the turquoise with a little bit of blue, and we'll get the shade. So I'm painting not the whole outline of this body of the butterfly, but just the shadow part of it. And I'm taking off more water from my brush and picking up a little bit of Payne's gray, and then put down little dot. I don't know why I'm talking so soft. Maybe because we're painting the butterfly and we want to feel the softness. I hope you can still hear me. Okay. All right, so that's a little butterfly. Now with that information on my paper, I can start to give it a little bit more definition. Just meaning I'm adding a little bit more darkness, but not everywhere. And I may even want to soften some of the edge, so this butterfly feels not so cut out. And the paper. Okay. All right. Now let's try to put in a little bit of that wing behind it. But first, let's add a little bit of definition. I feel like I want to marry the two, the butterfly and the flower, and I notice there's this butterfly should have yellow color reflected on the wings. So let's just add some of that yellow. Okay, yep, I can definitely feel they're marrying now. A little bit here. And for that wing in the back, I'm going to use a little bit of blue and see if I can cut it out. I mean, bring out the one in the front better. Okay. And now I'm going to use just the tip of my brush and pick up some of my dark color, the Payne's green with a little bit of amber, burnt amber, and see how I can bring out the form of this butterfly a little better. Touching it, it's a little bit wet, so maybe we can start here. Now I'm switching to a synthetic brush, and this is a brush I use to soften the edges. And I see that this chest of the butterfly, this edge is too strong and taking away the spatial relationship. Yeah, I think this is a whole lot better. So now, yeah, this butterfly feels more integrated into this atmosphere. Okay. All right, and now I want to wait for this butterfly to dry a little bit more to add more definition. Now it's just too wet, and whatever definition I'm adding to this area is just not going to stay. It's going to diffuse. So let's switch gear and look at the flower and see what I can do finally to bring this definition better. So we actually had a really nice loose painting, and now because we're adding this butterfly and it looks more defined, so we need to bump up this flower. And this process is really common as we paint more complex paintings, especially when I was painting the portrait. It's constantly adjusting back and forth from foreground to background and to make it feels right. So just be patient and take your time with your painting and make adjustment as needed. So I'm just adding a little bit of texture. So there's enough definition on the flower as well to be more consistent with a butterfly. And I think just a little bit of this little dots already give it more of definition. And we can do so with a petal. Okay, I think I'm liking this. There's definitely more definition now, and the flowers then start to step up. And now this is drier, so I can start to come in with a little bit of fine lines, fine lines. Just let it pop a little more. Okay, see now this is drier and my darkness can stay instead of going everywhere. And really just a little bit. And that's all I want to do. No more fussy. And I think that's lovely. And I'm just going to do a little bit of spatter around the little butterfly. To bring a bit more of that connection between the butterfly, and I notice this little spatter comes to the other flower too, so that actually brings the color connection and a really energetic connection between these two flowers and the butterfly. Okay, maybe I want to just a little bit of that color to bring more of the color harmony. And we'll call this a painting. Okay, let's zoom out and see. So, all right, so this is our little painting, a little sketch, and it's loose and with some definition, and not too difficult. It's good for beginners and a little more experience to just enjoy painting summer, painting flowers. And the important learning for this lesson is to have a spatial relationship between or among all three different flowers. And we had most definition, most saturated colors on this flower, and secondly on here. But this one will just really let it out of focus with less definition, less saturation, and now this fills in the back. And then when we added the butterfly, we're really trying to give it the kind of definition that make it look like a butterfly, but not too much jumping out out of this paper, out of this context. And we did the final touch on the flower to match the definition of this butterfly, so they look in the same place. Okay, I hope you enjoy this lesson, and I will see you next time.